Apollo Automation was kind enough to send me their M1 LED panel. Don't mind the flickering, that's just part of the camera, not the device itself. With this panel here, you can do all kinds of stuff. You can send an image to it or display an image on it. You can hook it to Home Assistant, send your sensor data or automation to it, whatever you want to do there, and all kinds of different things. So we're going to play around with it just a little bit, give you a high-level overview of what it does and what I've been able to do with it, and just kind of show you around. Let's get started. All right, let's get this hooked up to Wi-Fi. First thing is when you plug it in, you'll have a Wi-Fi hotspot created called Apollo M1. So click on that in your mobile device and then go to 4321 or click on the sign in to Wi-Fi button that it showed up there. And then you'll go to the WLED screen, click on Wi-Fi settings there, and you'll enter your network's SSID. And then you'll also go and enter the hotspot password. So do that. Then I give it a host name of Apollo-M1 so it can find it on the network. You can type that in your browser. All right, leave everything else the same here. And then you're going to click on Save and Connect. And once you do that, it'll connect to Wi-Fi. And then everything else we will do that in the browser. All right, now that you've got it hooked up to Wi-Fi, you should be ready to do the next steps. Now, according to their website, there are some things that don't get pre-configured based on the firmware, at least as of this recording. So you'll have to go and make some changes. And I'm going to follow along the guide that they basically set up for us to do this on their website. So you go to config, and those are huge. Can't make it any smaller. I guess we're going to go with huge letters here. I'm going to go to LED preferences, and we're going to set the chain length to 1. As soon as I find that. Just search for it. Set the chain length to 1. And then we're also going to uncheck enable automatic brightness limiter. So let's look for that. Automatic brightness limiter is unchecked. So we'll do that right there. And then we're going to click on save right here at the top of the screen. Okay, and those pieces there. And then we want to click on config 2D configuration. And we're going to change this to a 2D matrix. And and I'm reading some notes down here, click the circle next to basic. Okay, we want to do basic there. And then change the panel dimensions to 64 by 64, since that's the panel we have. All right, so it looks like this, which is our panel. And then I'm going to click on save. Again, we're doing all this because in the firmware version, as of this recording, they're not able to preset all of that in this. All right, so now we should be able to go back to the main page. And our device is not. So warning here is rebooted. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the plug on this. So we'll just go ahead and you can see the backside. By the way, it's running on this little controller board right here. I'm just going to unplug it. And then I will plug it back in to reboot it. And I think there's actually a button on here that allows you to reboot it as well. One of these two buttons. You can't see very well on the camera. And we're going to reboot it, let it do its thing. While it's doing that, one thing I didn't do is I normally talk about what this actually is. So let me go into what the M1 actually does here. The M1 is a vibrant high-performance display featuring 4096 pixels in a Hub 75 format. It's powered by their 5-volt 3-amp controller. It has no additional power source requirements, and the compact controller hides discreetly behind the matrix. And let me see if I can show that to you here real quick. Let me pull that over to a place where I can actually show it to you without showing you my entire messy desk here. So give me just a second for that. All right, so there is the controller right there. That is it sits right behind the board, or sits behind this whole thing. So that's the controller that they're talking about. And I don't think you can see the information. Yep, it's an Espressif ESP32S3 W Room-1. So it's a standard ESP device. So if you're familiar with ESP stuff, you could potentially mess around with it and do whatever you want with it. It's pre-flash with the WLED firmware, which is what you're essentially seeing here. This is WLED stuff. And it offers easy experience right out of the box. You can customize it with animations, effects, colors. Use Pixel Magic tool to create your own unique images and designs. And you can connect 4 of them together to create a bigger display. You'll probably need extra power for that. So they talk about some use cases here: dynamic indoor-outdoor digital signage, interactive art displays, real-time data visualization like the weather, stock prices, social media feeds, custom notifications, scoreboards, ambient lighting, patterns, mood setting, and all this other stuff. So that is what the device actually does. And they go through a bunch of stuff in here about how you get started, which is what I basically did: set up for Wi-Fi, and then I went through and configured some things. Now, if you go over into Home Assistant, it should automatically find it as well. So I'm going to go into my integrations page here in Home Assistant, and it has discovered the Apollo M1. I'm going to go ahead and add that to Home Assistant so we can start utilizing that stuff. And I'll just put it in the studio because that's where it's at. And we're finished. So now we have our Apollo M1 sitting here in Home Assistant that we can start doing stuff with. So obviously you can tell by the wardrobe change, it is the next day. I'd take a break and do something else for a moment. And so now I'm back to finishing up this video for you. All right, so let's just jump into a couple of things here that they talk about on the website. First of all is some of the examples here. So we've got the scrolling text that I'll show you now. And under the scrolling text, if you go over here to the WLED page, and again, I'm doing this on the browser, not on the phone, but you can do this on the phone as well. You can search for scrolling text in here for your effect mode and click on that. Now, by default, it's going to show you something like this. And if you look at it over on the device itself, that's what it looks like. Looks better in person than on the camera, obviously, but it does scroll that text. Now, you can change the speed of the text by moving this, and it will go faster. So now if we look over here, it's actually scrolling faster. You can do things like change the brightness. You can change a bunch of stuff over here. So you can make it super bright if you want to. And you can also change the color palette. So if I just choose a single color over here, you'll see it change up here. And then of course, over here on the board, it changes. Now I get a little bit of washouts. Let me turn the brightness almost all the way down. And you'll see it change over there. So changing the brightness over here obviously changes the brightness on the panel. All right, so that's the text. Now you can come over here to the segment and you can put whatever you want to. So I could type in something like and subscribe. And I can save that over here. And now if you look at the panel, first of all, you see it obviously up here. And then you see it scrolling across on the panel as like and subscribe. So you can change your text modes and do all of that. You can also create a preset by doing that. So if I come over here and I click on preset, if I add the preset, I can call this like and subscribe. And I can save it. Now, if I use current state, include the brightness and all the rest of this, it should get out of the way here. It should actually keep it. So I'm going to click on save. And now you'll see that I have a like and subscribe here. So if I went over here and I chose a different effect, for example, let's just pick on, let's just do Android. Not Android. There we go. We have black hole, and you can see the black hole here on the panel. And if I come back over here and click on like and subscribe, it should show it, and it's back behind here. There it is, like and subscribe, and you can see it on the panel as well. So you can create some custom presets as well. And I've done a few more presets I'll show you here in just a second. All right, so that's one of the examples they have here. So if we come over here and we look at the create logo image. Now this is a whole nother story. I talked to Apollo a little bit about this, and they say there's a newer version of WLED that solves some of the issues that I was having. But if you go to their example on here, if you go to this link and you download the Pixel Magic tool, so this is a GitHub page, you go to Pixel Magic and you come over here and you download the raw file, and then you put it into, or you open it up on your computer into a browser. This is what you're going to see. And you put your host name of your, let me just refresh it, put your host name. So I would put either the IP address or whatever you called it when you set it up on Wi-Fi. And I could put MC logo for my logo. And I set the brightness down to about here, just so I don't wash it out on the camera. And then my width and height is going to be my panel height, because I'm going to make it full panel. And I'm going to go find an image. So let me see if I can find an image here. Downloads. Let's just pick this one here. And I'm going to click on generate. And the first thing you're going to notice is it's going to give you a kind of a warning that the file size is too big. So here's a warning, large data size. And they talk about that on their website. If you get the warning, you're going to have issues. So you want to enable compression, move the slider to the left for more, or for less compression to the right for more. So going over here to Pixel Magic, if I enable compression here, well, first of all, we generated it, and this is what it looks like. If I were to simulate this on the panel, let's just take a quick look at that. This is what it looks like on the panel. Looks great. Looks exactly like I want it to look on the panel. Now this file size is something like, I don't know, 30K or something. In fact, I can tell you how big this file size is. The file size is 35K. It's still too big for what we're trying to do here. So now what I'm going to do is, if I try to save it, I'll get an error. So I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to enable compression. And I'm going to set the compression level one level higher than what I have as default. I'm going to generate it now again. It doesn't change it on this screen, but if I look at it, if I simulate it now on the tablet, it destroys it, basically. It doesn't look good at all. I play with this back and forth. And again, I talked to Apollo about this a little bit, and it didn't actually ever work for me. My thought is you have to create a logo or whatever you're going to put on this panel for now, at least in this version of WLED, as of the time of this filming anyway. You're going to have to create a panel or an image that's exactly the right size for the panel. File size wise, I think it's like 15 or 16K. So I played around with it, never really got it to work. What you would do then is you would actually come over here now and you would save this, and it would save it over to your presets over here, and then you can click on that. One other thing I noticed too is if you've got to be careful here that you don't mess up your presets. That's one of the other issues I ran into, was that I would save it from that Pixel Magic Pro tool or Pixel Magic tool. When I click on save here from this tool, it would sometimes corrupt my my presets over here. There's a way to back up these presets. So if you go to M1 or Apollo, and then you go to settings and SEC, this one right here, you click on that, you can actually back up your configuration. You can back up your presets. So I'm going to back up my presets right now. And that way, and you don't see it, but it backed it up onto my file system here. I have a backup. I've got that backed up just in case I mess it up. So I'm going to try to save it, just kind of show you what happens here. So let's go over here to the Pixel Magic tool. I'm going to click on save. It says it saved successfully. Okay. So if I go over now to my Apollo thing here, my WLED panel, I do have the logo here. You can see that it's messed up because it's gotten compressed. So let me just start over here back to my like and subscribe, kind of give you a thing. There it is. Looks good. So I come over here and I click on the logo, and it's going to load it. The preview is not up here. And then if I look at the actual camo or the panel, that's what it looks like. Kind of gross. So let me just click on the like and subscribe again. So I don't know. There's a version of WLED, the newer version. I think they said 14.51. I could be wrong. I think that's the one they said. That's supposed to take these images and make them look a whole lot better on things like these panels. They're waiting to do some firmware testing on that, so we'll see how that shakes out. But right now, make the file size you want it to be, or as small as you can be. Make it so it'll fit on the panel without having to compress it, and then it might look okay. But as far as compressing it goes, If I click on it now, obviously it looks pretty terrible on the panel. Even though if I were to display it directly in the panel through the simulation with no compression, it would be just fine. All right, so that's just the image one. We talked about the scrolling text. We talked about the images, and there's some, they call it popular images. By the way, all of this is on here for you to download or for you to look at. They've got 3 images that actually work here. So let me just show you an example of one. So let me go back over here. I'm going to copy this. This is on the bottom of their wiki. I'm going to copy this here. So there's a little copy to clipboard link over here. I go over here and click on that, and I do a preset now. And then down below here, there is the command I just copied, and I click on save down here at the bottom. It's going to put it in ID7. And now I have a Dallas Cowboys logo. And right away, you can see it shows up on the panel because I just saved that. So now I have the Cowboys logo, my logo, which is pretty terrible, and the like and subscribe. And the other 2 that were on the page here, the Apollo and the Home Assistant logo, I've already got those in here. So if I click on Apollo logo now, you'll see that there's the Apollo logo. And if I click on the Home Assistant logo, the Home Assistant logo shows up there as well. So those are ways to create custom images. And if you know what you're doing on that, you can create whatever image you want. All right, so one of the other cool things I've done is, let me show you what it looks like, and then I'll show you how I got to this point, right? You can also create Home Assistant data, or you can put the Home Assistant data on here, and they walk you through how to do this. They call it an advanced setup. First thing you need to do is create some additional segments, because this is designed for 4 segments. I'm not going to use 4 segments. I'm only going to use 2, but let me show you what it looks like. So if we go back over here, and you'll see that on this page, I have 2 panels. And I call it 2 panels because I'm going to use 2 panels. So looking at this, 2 panels, and then the actual view is that. So you can see that I have, this is kind of split into 2. So 1 and 2 are on here, and on this page doesn't show anymore. Anyway, there's the temperature and the feels like temperature and the humidity, just a couple of samples that I set up from Home Assistant. And I split this into 2 panels. And the way I did that was, on here, there's segments, not panels. You can have multiple panels as well. Each panel can be a segment, but this will allow you to do up to 4 panels. I have 2 different segments. The first segment is this one, and the code that I use in Home Assistant renames this to this text so that it shows up on the screen. And if you want the text not to scroll, you have to make it short enough or small enough that it fits on the panel without being too long. Once it's past a certain point, it will start to scroll, as you saw the like and subscribe scroll. If you want it to be static, like I am showing on here, then you need to make it small enough that it fits within this panel here and doesn't exceed the panel width, so that it won't scroll, or so it will not have to scroll. All right, so adding a panel simply, or adding a segment, you just add a segment, and then you set your start and stop for your Y is your horizontal. No, your vertical. Your Y is your vertical, so up and down. So right now, the way I have is 2 segments. I have it set up so that I have it starting at 0 for the top segment, ending at 32. So the panel's 64, I don't know what they're called, segments? No, 64 lines. We'll just call them lines. I'm sure there's a better term for that. 64 lines total in height. So I split it in 2. So I divide by 2, that gives me 32. And on the bottom one, I start 32 and end on 64. And that's how I split the panel in half. I don't know why today it's doing this, but there we go. When you split it like that, you'll see it show up like this. And if I were to change this and make this, let's say 25 or 24, see how it shortens that? You can split these segments up however you want to split the segments up, but 32 gives it right in half. So you have a scrolling text segment on top and a scrolling text segment on the bottom. And then I use code in Home Assistant to actually send the data over. Now, once I select, and this is another caveat, the WLED program is great. I've not spent a lot of time in it. I'm not an expert on WLED. This is actually my first foray into using the actual WLED stuff. So I'm sure a lot of you have a better way to do this. But one example here is if I go to 2 panels, which I have now, and I click on any of these other presets like the logo, it's going to display in the top part of the panel only. I don't know why it does that, or I know why it does it. I don't know how to keep it from doing that. There's probably a setting in the code, and I haven't spent a lot of time figuring it out. There's probably a setting in the code that tells it to use the single panel. I've tried to save these presets with just one panel, and every time I go to the 2 panels and go to one of these other logos, it goes to, and you see here, it goes to splitting the panel. So I've created a preset that actually makes it a single panel. And then if I go back over here, now it displays everything in one single setup, or one single panel view or segment. So I don't know what to do about that yet. I'll continue to play with that, but I have a workaround to do that if I want to do that. All right, so let's get into how this works with the code here. They give you this on their wiki page, right? They talk about how to set up the segments. You can do 4 segments. Again, I just do 2 and I remove a couple sections of code. So they talk about installing Studio Code Server from the add-on store. I don't do that because sometimes it's CPU intensive. I have other ways to edit my stuff within Home Assistant. You can just go into your file editor under Home Assistant. It's just part of the Home Assistant, setup here. And then you can go into the configuration.yaml page. That's where I'm at right now. Here's the way they generate the code. So we'll just go down here. They have a generator here that creates all the YAML for you. So you don't have to be worried about it. First, you want to put in your actual host name or IP address. So this is Apollo. For me, it's Apollo M1 local. That's the URL. And then you'll come down here. Actually, you'll keep scrolling. You'll come down here and you'll choose the different types of devices you want to put on your panel. It's still early, by the way. Panel, and then you choose the entity ID. And in my case, I put in, let's just see here. I'll just take this one, first one, my sensor. Then I'll put in here the entity ID. And then there's a feels like, and I'll put in the feels like for this. And you can do this for all these segments that you want to put in here. So this is segment 0. That's the first segment. That's the top one in my case. Then you have segment 1, segment 2, and segment 3. So there's 4 segments total on a single panel. And you can put all that in here. What it does is it automatically generates this YAML code for you that you will paste into your configuration.yaml file. It does it in real time. You can see these changes I made are automatically put in here. So I basically did this. Now I only have segment 0 and I only have segment 1. So I got rid of all of this stuff at the bottom here and the comma here. Make sure your YAML is formatted properly. If you're going to mess around with this, you need to understand YAML a little bit. But you take this now and you paste it into your Home Assistant instance like this. And then you'll go into Home Assistant again. You can do this in the same window. I'm just going to be in a different window. I'm going to go to Developer Tools now. And I'm going to check the configuration to make sure it looks good for the stuff I've pasted. Configuration will not prevent it from starting. So that's good. And then you need to reload. This section here is configuration reloading. You can reload parts of the Home Assistant configuration without having to restart the whole thing. So you would click on these RESTful commands, or this RESTful command, and it will reload the RESTful command. And once you do that, then the stuff you put in here will be loaded into Home Assistant that you can start using it. and it sends it over to, I use the IP address in this case, but it sends it over to your panel in a post method, and it shows up on the panel. And what it does, as I showed you before, under this 2 panels section, again, this interface is wonky, it shows you this right here. So this is what it's putting over from there into my Home Assistant instance. And I'll just show you real quick. It just puts the temperature and then a Fahrenheit or F, and then the slash and the feels like. And then down here, I have the word shorten humidity, HUM, and then the sensor for humidity, and then the percent sign at the end. So what you see when you do all of that is temperature slash feels like, and then humidity, 40% in this case. Now, one other thing you want to do, and they talk about it here as well, is once you paste it in here, it goes through all of what I just showed you, and then you want to create an automation that does something with this. So if I go back over here to automations now, I've created one, matrix, and I've got it off now because I don't want it updating my panel while I'm trying to show you stuff. But basically, you go in here and you create a trigger. I trigger every minute, so it updates the current temperature. And then all it does is it runs a RESTful command, all segments. So I'll show you how I did that. You just look for RESTful command, matrix all segments. You just put that in as the action, which I've done here, and then it'll update it. So if I go ahead and turn that back on now, I'll enable it here, and you'll see here it's 97 or whatever. Let me run it real quick. And I just ran it manually, and now you'll see that the temperature's updated. It's 73 degrees Fahrenheit with a feels like temperature 73. The humidity is 93%. That's wet, moist. Okay, so that's a quick overview. The device itself is really nice. I can see a lot of use cases for it. So now you just take your imagination and you play with the panel. You can get these over at Apollo Automation. They're available over there. Again, a couple of thoughts about it. The WLED stuff is weird in terms of the images, putting the logos on there. You just need to find something that is the right file size, or build something the right file size so that it shows up properly on there until this whole compression thing gets figured out. Or you go to the next WLED version, which hopefully they'll release sometime soon. Overall, the panel's nice. One of the things I guess I didn't show you on here is there's a whole ton of presets that it'll do already. This is a bunch of presets you can use that are already on here. That's an interesting one. Just tons of presets that you can put on the panel and play around with. Again, the camera doesn't do it justice, but you can see all of these different things you can do with it. So it is a fun panel to play with. You can get multiple panels going together, hook them all together, and make yourself a big screen to do things. And yeah, so that's it. Get one of these things, get a pair of them, get 4 of them, play around with them, and build up something nice with it. Interface notwithstanding, it is a nice panel. It is a nice addition to the Apollo automation line of stuff. They have a lot of different things they've built out now. And so a lot of good quality stuff. They work well with Home Assistant, which is what I spend a lot of my time in and all that. So, all right, that's it. Appreciate you watching. If you are a subscriber, wonderful. If you're not, please hit that subscribe button. You know, that makes things go well for the algorithm. Also, the like button also helps the algorithm and helps get these videos out there. So with that, we will see you on the next video.